So Earthbound's going to be a duology, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So after that, do you have more things in this world you want to explore, like different things, or you want to have something else you want to totally move on to?
Yeah, there's the $1 million question.
Yeah.
Because the further you go into a world, you're like, oh, well, I've got this whole kind of expanded world now that you can kind of play in, really.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I'm not going to close the door on it for
Yeah.
sure. I think there's more to explore in it. I haven't planned anything yet. After I finish drafting the sequel, Skysworn, I'm moving on to a more science fiction sort of novel that's been bugging me for a couple of years. It needs to be written. So I'm going to do that next and then
Yeah.
maybe come around. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you like switching between the two a little bit? Does it help like keep refreshed on ideas and
Yeah, that's kind of how it set itself up, actually, like with, more science fiction and then more fantasy. I would say, like, as much as I probably read more fantasy novels early on, I landed in more science fiction kind of through my 20s and 30s that was just kind of like where I was at. I really love the genre. So in some ways that feels like home. Fantasy feels like more of a risk for me. But I love it equally. I don't know how to
yeah.
really say it. But yeah, I think going back and forth, especially because they do kind of borrow from one another. It's just how you explain it that ends up kind of defining if is this magic, is this science, what's driving this world. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think when Star Wars came out, it really officially kind of blurred the lines of that because that's a sci-fi fantasy, so it's
Mm-hmm.
space and science, but also wizards and magic. So I
Absolutely.
I think once that happened, now it's just kind of this blended, you know, thing. You never
Mm-hmm.
really know what side something's on, I guess.
And that's probably when you were talking about influences earlier, like that's probably the largest one I left out. Like Star Wars is part of our family to the point where it's all the art we have on our walls. It's all, like we're there. And so that's such a huge, huge influence. Even if you're not borrowing I haven't written anything in space yet,
Yeah.
but so even though I'm not in space, I actually comp Earthbound to the Mandalorian a little bit because it's like
Mhm.
you took one of those planet side adventures where he's like stuck on a planet and now we're gonna go do
Yeah.
some stuff. And
Yeah.
that sort of mix of like high and low tech, like where they can
Mhm.
have like these really gritty little outposts and places, and it doesn't, they're cooking over a fire, but then they pull out their data pad and do their stuff.
Yeah.
Like it's that sort of mix
Yeah.
of technology.
I always tell people when even if you don't like Star Wars, even if you've never seen Star Wars, for Star Wars fans, even if they don't like George Lucas,
Mm-hmm.
there's no one can deny the contribution that he made to storytelling, movie making, like the whole with both the sequel or the originals and the prequels. Like he redefined movie making twice and like
Mm-hmm.
the technology that we all use. But
Yeah.
then like when Stars came out in 77, how the story was told, the editing, the pace of it, like I mean it redefined everything. So I'm like, even
Yeah.
if you don't have to like Star Wars, but you do have to recognize its impact on everything.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then have you read any of Timothy Zahn? So
I haven't read the Heir to the Empire stuff for years, but
yeah,
love it.
I fell into that. And then I think I can't say all of that, what he's written, but I've read a lot of what he's written. And as like just fun sci-fi, that guy definitely is up there for me. I just love it.
Yeah.
And his Thrawn series that he did,
Yeah.
Thrawn and what was the other one? Whatever
Yeah,
it's called.
it was like two trilogies or something.
Yeah, I read them both. I can't remember the names. Fantastic.
We my older brother has all of the books from the Legend, now what's called Legends stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
So when we were growing up, like when I was in first, second, third grade, like I was just read he would go we'd go to we had a little store called Ben Franklin that we'd go and get like, $6 and you could get the next paperback or whatever. And so I read those. That's like all I read for a long
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. And there's something like so comforting about just, again, kind of landing in a world that, even if you're with new characters, you're like, I understand this universe. I just want to I love that. And there's so much variance because you have a whole universe to run around in.